So these two stories I'm going to share with you today are tzadikim that you might have heard of. Maybe you didn't. But these stories are two of my absolute favorites. And the first one is about a little Jew in a shtetl in Europe. One sec. And about a little Jew in a shtetl in Europe. And this little Jew, and let me first tell you what a shtetl is. A shtetl, here comes the next one. A shtetl is a little village like, you know, a little town with horses and cows and a couple of Jews living there. But back in Europe, the people weren't allowed to own or do a lot of their own types of businesses. So one of the famous businesses that many, many Jews would do is they would run a little krechma. A krechma is like a little pub, like a little bed and breakfast, where people would come in, and if they needed a place to sleep, they would get a bed. Or if they needed a drink, they would come in and get a drink. And all the goyim would come as well. They would come in and they would come to get a drink at night. But you know what happens by this little Moshke and his wife Chanala and their krechma? Well, I'll tell you what happened. The goyim would come in, Ivan would come in and he'd say, Moshke, give me a drink of beer, give me a drink of whiskey. And Moshke would say, but you didn't pay your bill from last week. And he'd say, nah, I had one little drink last week. And he'd say, just give me one drink today. And Ivan would drink one drink and two drinks and three drinks. And then at the end of the night, he would promise, I only had one little one. And what could poor Moshke do? And there wasn't just one Ivan, there was two Ivans and three Ivans. And whenever they would come, they would drink him out. And poor Moshke, he couldn't pay the rent. He was renting this krechma, this little pub, from the pirates. And when the pirates would come around, he would say, soon, I'll give you the rent soon. Well, it was one Sunday, and the pirates came in, and he said, Moshke, enough is enough. You can't pay the rent in 1 week. I'm coming back, and I am going to kick you out of here. You got to bring me my money. Well, this pirates, what was Gewalt little Moshke supposed to do? He said, okay, I don't know. He comes home, and he's sitting there quietly sipping his drink of water. And his wife Chanala looks at him and says, Moshke, what's wrong? And he says, you know what's wrong. I can't pay the pirates. And every time that he comes and he asks me for more, what am I supposed to do? And Chanala says, oh, it's going to be okay. He goes, okay, it's not going to be okay. I don't know what to do. Next Sunday he's going to come and I don't know what I'm going to tell him. So Chanala looks at him and says, you know, I'll tell you the truth. All of my friends tell me that when they have a problem, they go to the nearby town. There's a town called Lezhensk. And there in Lezhensk, there's a Rebbe. And they call him Melech. And if you go to this Rebbe, and all my friends' husbands, they go, and anytime they have a problem, they go to this Rebbe. Now, let me tell you, boys and girls, this Rebbe was known as the Holy Rebbe Elimelech of Lezhensk. He was the Talmud of the great Maggid of Mezerich, who was a student of the great Baal Shem Tov. And Rebbe Elimelech, he began to spread Torah and Chasidus and Avodas Hashem all across Poland and beyond. And many, many, many big tzadikim used to go and learn by him. So what did little Chanala and little Moshke really know? They said, I guess to go to Melech and Lezhensk, what could be wrong? And she says, well, I'll tell you what they do. Every person that goes to Melech, they take a piece of paper and they write on it what their problem is. They come in and they give it to Melech and everything's okay. Moshke says, I don't even have paper. Who has paper? I have a little krechma. So he listens to his wife and he goes out into the barn and he finds a big piece of wood and he takes a big knife and starts scratching into it and he writes, Moshke can't pay the rent. And it's a big board. He puts it under his arm and he says goodbye to his wife Chanala. She prepared him a little sandwich, a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and maybe a little chocolate milk to take along. And he starts walking over the mountains. But you know, Moshke didn't only had one pair of shoes. And when you're walking through the nice grassy hills in the mountains, you don't want to ruin your one pair of shoes. So he untied them and put them over his shoulders. And he's walking through the hills to Lezhensk. And as he's walking to Lizhensk. There are 3 people in the distance. He sees them, and they're walking. And you know who these 3 people were? They were 3 big tzadikim. But back then, they were just, nobody knew them yet. They were still just Talmidim, students of the holy Rebbe Elimelech. One of them was Rabbi Yaakov Yitzchak, who was later known as the Chayze of Lublin. Well, you know why they called him the Chayze? Because he was able to see. He could see things that nobody else could see. He could see far away. He davened for many years to get this special koach. And he watched his eyes so carefully to only look and see good things. But gewalt, he could see things far, far away. The second tzaddik that was walking along was the holy tzaddik, Rabbi Menachem Mendel of Rimenov, who also was a very big tzaddik, and he was going to become the Rav in Rimenov later in his life. And the last one was the youngest one, was Rabbi Naftali Tzvi of Ropshitz. And he was going to become the Rav of Ropshitz one day, but at this point he was still just known as Naftule. And these 3 are walking along, and they see a little Jew walking with his little shoes strung over his shoulders. And they, of course, when Jews are walking, let's all walk together. So they call out and they say, Rabbi Yid, how are you? You want to come? Let's walk together. So they start walking, and they look, and they say, who are you? He says, my name is Moshke. Moshke, I see you have a big board under your arm, said the holy Chayze, Rabbi Yaakov Yitzchak. He says, can you tell me? What is that board for? Well, said Moshke, the truth is that I don't even know what I'm doing, but I'm going to Melech. And my wife told me that I should tell Melech that I can't pay the rent. The parrot keeps on coming and I can't pay the rent. And I wrote on this board what I need from Melech. So, of course, they all chuckle, this beautiful Yidela, and he's just calling the holy Rebbe Elimelech, just Melech by his first name, but okay. And so the Chayze says, can I take a look at your note? And he says, no, this note is mine. It's only for Melech's eyes. And Rabbi Yaakov Yitzchak says, no, come on, show it to me. Let me take a look at it. And so after a few more minutes, Moshke says, okay, and he passes him the board. And the holy Rabbi Yaakov Yitzchak, the Chayze, who's able to see things that no one else could see, he picks up that board and he looks at it, and suddenly his face turns white. And he says, Moshke, I'm just telling you one thing. Next Sunday, hide. Don't go out to the streets. Whatever you do, don't let the pirates find you. It's going to be very bad, very, very bad. And Moshke looks at him and says, I shouldn't have showed this to you anyway. What do you know? You're just another Jew like me, a simple Yidela. You don't know nothing. And so they continued their walk, and they came to the city of Lizhensk, and Moshke was very unhappy with what Rabbi Yaakov Yitzchak told him. And when he comes to the doors of the Rebbe Elimelech, he slams them open, and he sees the holy Rebbe Elimelech is sitting there with a big sefer in front of him, and he throws the board right then. He says, Melech, read this. And the holy Rebbe Elimelech looks down at the board, and he picks up his eyes, and he sees the holy Rabbi Yaakov Yitzchak, the Chayze, comes running into the room, and after him is Rabbi Menachem Mendel, and then little Naftali, the holy Ropshitzer. They come into the room, and Rabbi Elimelech looks up, and he says, Yaakov Yitzchak, are you reading my letters? And of course, the Chayze goes, yeah. He says, it's my letters. You shouldn't read them. And Moshke is looking back and forth. How did he know that he read the letter? What's going on? And suddenly Rebbe Elimelech looks at Moshke and he says, my sweet Moshele. I'll tell you what, Moshele. When the parrot comes and he asks you to stay, gewalt, you should tell him that he has to give you 500 rubles if he wants you to stay and continue in the Kretschma. And Moshke goes, this is crazy. He's going to pay me 500 rubles? That doesn't make any sense. And Moshke runs out the door, and he leaves everything behind, and he comes back home. And his wife, Chanala, says, Moshe, what happened? And he says, don't ask. It was crazy. Nobody knows what they're talking about. I don't know what's going to be. Well, that Shabbos came. And you know how a Yid is on Shabbos. Gewalt, everything that happens during the week, you just forget about it all. You start a beautiful Nigan Licha Daidi. You come into Shabbos, and all your problems from the week, anything that happened, you leave it all behind. and you sit down Friday night and you make Kiddush and you sing Zmiris, and then Shabbos you play games and you have a fun time with the family, and maybe you're even lucky to hear a story. And Gewalt, by the end of Shabbos, who could even remember parrots, problems? It's all in the past. And the meeting with Rabbi Elimelech and meeting the Chayze, also long gone. And Sunday morning, our little Moshke is walking down the main street of his little shtetl, and he's humming himself a little niggin as he's holding his potatoes under his arm. And suddenly, there's a clip-clop of a horse. And up comes the parrots, riding up with his big whip, and he says, "Moshke, do you have my money?" And Moshke looks up and he goes, "Oh no, I don't." And the parrot takes his whip and he starts beating him and hurting him again and again. "Moshke, I told you to have my money. I'm going to kill you." And Moshke Gevalti sitting there, and one hit and another hit. He's all zaklopped. And that's it. The parrot rides off, leaving him dead in the ditch. But little Moshke, he's bloody, he's broken. And he crawls home and he knocks on the door. And his wife opens up and goes, "Moshke, what happened?" She pulls him in and she puts him in the bed. And Gevalti starts wiping up all of his cuts and bruises. And she gives him chicken soup. And Moshke's so sad. What's going to be? That's it. He's going to come and finish me off. It's not going to be long. I'm going to be done. Ay, Gewalt, poor Moshke. Meanwhile, the parrot comes riding home. And a few days later, the parrot is sitting in his big study. And suddenly his wife comes in and says, "Honey, where's Moshke?" And the parrot says, "Moshke, I think I might have killed him." "Honey, you killed my Moshke?" And the parrot looks, "You're Moshke? What do you mean you're Moshke?" He goes, "You know, he always gets me the best, reddest tomatoes. Anything that I need, vegetables from the big market, he always gets it for me. You can kill any Jew you want, but not my Moshke." And Gewalt, even the parrot has to listen to his boss. And he looks around and he goes, I don't know. And she goes, "You better go back and check on that Moshke, and you better not get rid of him. You be nice to him. You do whatever it takes." And he put his hood on and snuck out the door. And she yells, "Grab a sack of potatoes and a bottle of vodka and give it to him to make up with him." And he does. He grabs some potatoes, grabs a bottle of vodka, and he starts off with his head, a tail between his legs, and he's heading his way to the little hut of Moshke and Chanala. And meanwhile, Moshke's there laying in his bed and thinking about, oh man, it's not long now. What's going to happen to me? We're going to be out of here in no time. And suddenly he looks out the window, and there he sees the parrots walking to his house, and he looks like he's got some big sack of some mean something under his arm. Last time it was the whip. Who knows what he's going to do to me this time? And he goes, and he, with strength that he didn't even know he had, he jumps out of bed, and he throws the whole bed in front of the door, and he makes a clatter, and he puts the table in the kitchen and everything. He shoves it against the front door so the parrots can't come in. And suddenly there's a knock at the door. And the parrot says, "Moshke, open up." And Moshke yells, "There's nobody home. Moshke's not here. Chananel's not home." And the parrot says, "Moshke, I can hear you in there. Just open the door." And so Moshke opens the door. He goes, "We're not here." And he slams the door shut. And the parrot says, "I'm not going to hurt you. I want you to stay. I'm sorry for making your issues. I know that it's been a hard year and you haven't been able to pay the rent, but you can stay. Just open the door. Look, I got a nice thing for you. I got some potatoes and a bottle of vodka." So Moshke opens the door. He grabs the potatoes and he grabs the vodka and he slams the door and he goes, and then he remembers. Wait. What did Rebbe Elimelech tell me? He told me that when the parrot comes back, I should make sure and tell him I'm only going to stay for 500 rubles. Should I do that? And Moshke opens the door and says, take your vodka. I'm only staying if you give me 500 rubles. And the Paritz looks at him and starts laughing. Moshke, you want me to give you 500 rubles? And so Moshke opens the door. Okay, I'm not gonna stay. I'm gonna leave. I'm gonna take my family and leave. And the Paritz knew that if he comes home and he tells his wife that Moshke's gone, it's gonna be the end of him. So he says, okay, Moshke, I'll let you stay. I'll give you the 500 rubles. But you gotta stay and stop with this. Just don't make trouble, okay? Moshke opens the door. He grabs the bottle of vodka back and he says, okay, that's it. I'll stay, but you bring me those 500 rubles. And the Paritz is laughing. This is just nuts. But he goes home. And you know, when the Paritz gives Moshke those 500 rubles, Moshke now goes and he invests in even a better whiskey. And this time he goes to another Ivan. He says, Ivan, you know how you always come and you tell me that you didn't drink so much and then you drink a lot and then you don't pay me? And Ivan says, yes, mister. He says, I'll tell you what. You come. Let me hire you. I'll pay you good money and you don't let any of the other Ivans drink for free. I'll let you drink for free, but you don't let anybody else. So Ivan's the biggest Ivan on the whole shtetl. And he comes and he stood by the door from then on. And, you know, Moshke started making some good money when all the Ivans started paying for all that whiskey and for all that yummy Thursday night cholent. And after a few years, Moshke was doing quite fine. Now, he had more than one pair of shoes, and his kids were smiling and happy, and they had what they needed. And Moshke's wife, Chanala, turns to Moshke. He says, Moshke, you remember Melech? And he says, yeah, that was the whole story. That's how it worked out for us. He goes, we never said thank you. We should go and say thank you. Well, says Chanala, my friends, when their husbands go and say thank you, they bring a little whiskey, a little moshke. They bring a little something to eat, and they make a little suda, a fistula, for the tzaddik and for the people that are there. And Moshke says, that's a good idea. So he packs up his best barrel of whiskey and he grabs a bunch of food together and they go off. And this time he's not walking through the hills. He's on a nice little carriage with a nice healthy horse. And they're slowly going through this nice tiyul through the hills. And they come to Lezhensk. And what do you know? When he comes in the doors in Lezhensk, there in the little base medrash, who's sitting in the corner? It's the holy Rabbi Yaakov Yitzchak, the Raice of Lublin, and Rabbi Menachem Mendel of Rimonov and Naphtali, the holy Ropshitzer. And the Raice looks up at this guy and he remembers, as if he saw a ghost. How could this guy be alive? How could it be? He looks up at him. And Rebbe Elimelech, of course, comes into the room. And he sees, Moshe, I'm so happy to see that you're doing well. And look at your family. Look at the kids. This is so beautiful. And the Chayzla is standing there. And he goes, how could it be? It doesn't make sense. I saw the Paritz kill him. I saw with my eyes that Hashem gave me. And Rebbe Melech looks up at the Chayzla. He says, Yaakov Yitzchak, you know how to see very well. But you want to mamish be a Rebbe? You have to learn how to see past the patch. You got to look past the punishment. You got to look past the gullus. You got to look and see. You have to have eyes for Mashiach. You have to have eyes to see beyond. Sometimes a Yid, he goes through some tough times. Sometimes we all have a hard day. But you got to look past it. Deeper past it. Gewalt. And so it was. Gewalt, the Chayza, learned that lesson. And so can we learn that lesson to see past the patch. And Gewalt, to see beyond, to see the goodness at the end, the incredible reward that's there for every single Jew. L'chaim, l'chaim. What do you say? We have time for one more story? Yeah? We got time for one more? Yeah. All right. Give me a thumbs up. Let me see in the videos. Who can give me a thumbs up? There we go. We got lots of thumbs ups. Okay, I'm going to tell you one more story. And this one also is also a real favorite in my house. We tell this one a lot. And this one is about Reb Naftali of Ropshitz. Now, we just told you in the last story that he was a Talmud of Rebbe Elimelech of Lezhensk. But you know something? After Rebbe Elimelech of Lezhensk died and he went to Olam Haba, his student, who we just spoke about, the Holy Chayze of Lublin, became the next Rebbe of Reb Naftali of Ropshitz. And Reb Naftali of Ropshitz was a tzaddik, and there were different types of tzadikim. Some tzadikim were very serious, and some were very relaxed. Some tzadikim, they would sing the same niggin every single Friday night. But there were some tzadikim that were wild. And every time, they would even make up new nigunim all the time, and they would like to make trouble, and they would like to make people laugh, and they would like to play even some fun and healthy pranks. Well, let me tell you, the holy Reb Naftali Tzvi of Ropshitz, he used to like to do all sorts of crazy things. I'll tell you one thing. Before we even start this story, I'll tell you one crazy story. One time, when he was still by Rebbe Elimelech of Lezhensk, a man came to the door. And this man, he was looking, and he needed a Yeshua. He needed a bracha. And Reb Naftali saw that he needed this bracha. But Rebbe Elimelech wasn't there. Rebbe Elimelech was locked in his room, and he'd been locked in his room for a while, and he wasn't coming out. And this yid needed a Yeshua right then and there. So he snuck by the bima, and he pulled out a talis, and he threw it over his head, and he wrapped himself up in it. And he comes, and he looks at the yidl, he says, "Yes," put on a deep voice, pretending to be Rebbe Elimelech. And the man said, Rebbe, I need a Yeshua. And he said, "Okay, I'm giving you a bracha." And the guy, mamish, he gave him a bracha, and the guy goes home thinking that he got a bracha from Rebbe Elimelech. The next day, he comes back, Baruch Hashem, the mamish, there was a Yeshua for him, and he comes back, and he tells Rebbe Elimelech, "Thank you so much for the bracha." And Rebbe Elimelech says, "When did I give you this bracha?" He goes, "Yesterday." He goes, "Oh, yeah. As soon as the man left, Rebbe Elimelech screamed out, "Naftali, Ropshitz, get over here! What did you do?" And Rebbe Naftali said, the man needed a Yeshua. And I said, "Hashem, you're the God of Rebbe Elimelech, you're the God of me, and you're the God of this boy. Hashem, give him a Yeshua." And it worked. And Rebbe Elimelech said, "Naftali Ropshitzer, don't you make trouble like that. You can't just pretend to be me. What do you think this is?" Well, so that was Reb Naftali of Ropshitz. So back to the story that we want to tell you right now. It starts off that the Holy Chayze had a very special gold kais, a gold becher, a kiddush cup, for Friday night. And when he would make kiddush on it, it was very, very special. Nobody else was allowed to drink from this cup. And Reb Naftali had his eyes on it. He knew, that's a special cup. That's a heilige kiddush cup. I want to get to be able to drink from that kiddush cup. And he waited his time until one time in the city of Lublin, it was in the middle of the winter, and it was snowy. And they're used to a lot of snow in Europe and especially in Poland. And during these cold winters, sometimes the snow would pile up so high that you could have no wagons in or out. But this was the first time that there was so much snow that it was weeks that nobody was able to get in and out of Lublin. And there was no onions in Lublin. No onions, you might tell me. Who cares? Say you don't have onions. But let me tell you about a Hasidic minhag. There's a Hasidic minhag that on Shabbos morning by the Suda, they eat eggs and onions. And some people take this one very seriously. You have to crush them in a certain way. And if you cut the onions up in the kitchen, no. You can't do that. You have to cut them by the table. And there's big kavanas, who knows? But Gewalt, there were no onions in Lublin. And everybody was starting to get worried. All the kids were playing kugelach down by the street, and they were talking with each other. And they all said, "You heard there's no onions? No onions? How's going to be no onions? What's going to happen on Shabbos? What's going to be?" All the women were talking to each other. I don't know what's going to be. There's no onions. No onions. What are we going to do? I thought, doesn't the Rebbe want to have onions? And all the Hasidim, forget about it. They would go to the mikvah, and they would go to the shul, and everywhere they're all talking about onions. Well, on Friday morning, the holy Reb Naftali Ropshitzer is walking down the road. He had just gone to the mikveh. His beard was still wet, and he's walking along, and he's on the way to shul. And he sees this big Polish guy, a farmer, come there, and he's got a smile across his face from ear to ear. And Gewalt, you know? He's got a big sack in his hand. And the holy Reb Naftali says, "Hello, my dear peasant friend, Ivan." And he says, "Yes, hello, mister." And he says, "Why are you so happy?" "Well, let me tell you, in all of Lublin, there is no onions. But here in my hand, I have a sack full of onions." And the Ropshitzer's eyes open wide. He says, "Really? What are you going to do with those onions?" He goes, "Hey, I sell them in market, make many ruble, many ruble, and I drink a lot of vodka." And so the Ropshitzer looks at him and he says, "I'll tell you what, can I buy that whole sack of onions off you right now?" "No, I sell one onion for 1 ruble. In here, I have 18 onions, 18 rubles." And the Ropshitzer thinks, 18 rubles? Are you crazy? A Yid could live on 18 rubles for a whole month. I'm not giving you 18 rubles. And so the guy says, "That's okay. I take, I go." And the Ropshitzer thinks and goes, "You know, in my pocket, I have 15 rubles. And I'll give you 15 rubles right now. And you can go get yourself a bottle of vodka right now. And you don't have to go and sell them one at a time." And Ivan says, "Very good. A drink right now?" He says, "Yeah." He says, "Okay. But what? Wait," says the Ropshitzer. "I have one more deal." "What is that, mister?" "I also want your big boots, and I want your coat and that big furry hat. You know that big furry hat that you have on? Bring it for me."
Yes, mister.
He says, "But I'd be cold." He says, "Yeah, but you'll drink your vodka. You'll be fine." He goes, 15 ruble? "Yeah, 15 rubles. And so Reb Naftali of Ropshitz counts out all 15 rubles, and he takes that big old coat and the hat and the boots. Well, he goes to shul, and he doesn't tell anybody about what happened. And meanwhile, all Friday long, they're all worried. And the Hasidim are running into the Rebbe, and they're saying, Rebbe, by the holy Chayz of Lublin, "Rebbe, what's going to be? We don't have any onions." And the Rebbe said, we'll find. Hashem will help. And it's going on more and more, and the Hasidim are worried. Everybody's worried. And suddenly, about an hour and a half before Shabbos, the Chayz is in his room, and he takes out that special kais, and he's polishing it special, a covered Shabbos Kodesh. And suddenly, there's a knock at the door. And one of the Hasidim, the Shamish, runs to the door. He opens it up, and there, standing in the doorway, is a big guy with a big furry hat pulled down over his eyes and a coat buttoned up to his mouth and big boots pulled on his feet. And in his hand, he's holding a sack. And the Shamish says, "Can I help you, sir?" And the big guy says, "Yes, mister, I have onions." And he says, "Really? You have onions?" He says, "Yes, but I only sell to a rabbi." "Really? Only sell it to the rabbi?" Okay, he runs to the back. He says, Rabbi, there's a guy by the front door, and he has onions, and he only wants to sell them to you." And the Chayzer says, okay, tell him to come in. So the guy comes in to the back room, and he's got that big hat pulled all the way down. And the Chayzer says, "No, how much do you want for the onions?" He goes, "What? I just sell them to you. No, first we have drink, vodka." And the Chayzer looks at him, says, "Okay, it's not like an official business deal. We're not, selling a large property. You have to have a drink, but okay, bring the vodka." They bring the vodka, and they give him a little cup, and they put it in his hands, and this big guy picks it up and he looks at the cup and he throws it across the room. He goes, I don't want little cup of vodka. I want big gold cup. Give me the gold cup. I want the gold cup. And the Chayzer looks and goes, ah. And all the Hasidim, they look. Rebbe, please, let him use the cup. We need the onions. And suddenly the guy goes, no gold cup. I don't sell onions. And the Rebbe doesn't know what to do. And all the Chassidim are like, please, Rebbe, we need the onions, the eggs and onions for Shabbos morning, the cup of Shabbos, please. And so they give him the cup, and he takes the vodka, and he fills the whole cup up for the guy. And suddenly they hand it to the guy, and the guy takes it, and his eyes sparkle as he looks at the gold cup. And suddenly he throws off the hat. He goes, Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam shakal ni'eved barai. And the holy Ropshitz drinks the cup from that holy cup of the Chayzer of Lublin. And the Chayzer's eyes look out. He goes, Ropshitz, what are you doing? Yeah, crazy guy. And he says, here, Rebbe, we have onions for Shabbos. And Gevalt, the holy Ropshitz, was zeichet to drink from that special gold Kiddush cup of his Rebbe. Gevalt, children, boys, girls. And this is I'm so lucky to be able to share this with you. This was so special, spending this time together today. And I'm looking forward to next week. And you should know that tonight there's going to be a special Avos Ubanim on here as well. And I'm excited to see you there.